Thank you, Michelle, and thanks to everyone for setting this up today. It's always a great meeting for us housing directors as well, because we learn an awful lot, and I appreciate it, and it's good to see everyone, even though we're not in person. I did not miss the drive to the meeting. I will tell you that much. So I do want to just give you an overview of what's going on. We do have a lot going on in Loudoun. I kind of left the budget discussion to the end of the presentation. I just have a few slides for you, but I do want to start off by saying how much I appreciate what NVAHA has done to help us have resources as we've gotten through the pandemic. We've still got a ways to go, but NVAHA has convened several key regional forums that have given us ideas, helped us talk through issues, and I really appreciate it, including the eviction forum, as well as the opportunity to discuss among jurisdictions about housing issues. So thank you for that. It's been invaluable, and we've made some great contacts as well, so I appreciate it. Nora, if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. So we've got a few things going on. One thing I did not put on the list, because I was thinking of current initiatives, but I thought you all would be interested in knowing that this past year in 2020, we did adopt a zoning ordinance amendment that allows for accessory dwelling units in every district that has residential uses. We think that's a pretty good step forward. We also have some of our incorporated towns are also following suit and providing more flexibility in their neighborhoods for accessory dwelling units, seeing that as a way they can contribute to affordable housing. So we're excited about it. Now, one thing I will tell you, a lot of Loudoun's development is new. We have a lot of HOAs, so we're still seeing a battle in terms of how we're able to get more accessory dwelling units in neighborhoods, but we see this as a really great first step. So in terms of our current major initiatives, we are doing a zoning ordinance overhaul right now. We adopted a new comprehensive plan in 2019, and we are now amending our zoning ordinance to fit. A primary objective of the zoning ordinance review is to eliminate barriers to affordability. So that lens is being used in considering our zoning ordinance. It is being managed by the Department of Planning and Zoning. Housing is part of the internal staff review team, and of course we're surfacing housing issues. There's also a citizens committee, a zoning ordinance committee, and a lot of public process that this will go through. So it's got a ways to go. They're still in the drafting stage, but we're excited about it. We expect revision to our ADU ordinance, which is our affordable dwelling unit ordinance, is our inclusionary zoning, and an emphasis on revision to parking requirements. We've been working on an unmet housing needs strategic plan. We have a draft that the board has under review. It goes to public hearing on Wednesday night, and it's a culmination of about 15 months of community outreach, many focus groups. Many of you all participated in the focus groups, which we appreciate. We have also talked with all of our advisory boards that have a connection to housing, done some surveys, community meetings, most of which has all been virtual. So it's been an interesting experience from that standpoint. But what we're trying to do is come up with concrete tools for the county to add to its toolkit. So this is not a land use plan, it's not a policy plan, it's really the concrete actions we'll take. And so we're really excited about it, and we expect it to be actionable, and we'll see where that goes. But anyway, it goes to public hearing on the 12th. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the plan a little bit later. Our multifamily loan program is now open. Our NoVA was published May the 1st. That will extend till October 1. And we'll use our housing trust as a way to fund projects. So we're looking for creative applications to use a county loan to build affordable housing. And in the second round of Amazon Reach, we were able to fund 2 projects, and we're very thankful for the money, and we're excited about the projects. We were able to provide some funding to the View at Broadlands, which is a 4% LIHTC. It's within walking distance of a metro station. So with that money, we were able to reduce some of the units to 50% AMI from 60%. And so we're excited to get some more affordability integrated within that project and so close to metro. We also used $1 million for a hybrid LIHTC project that is within walking distance of regional transit. So it connects to our metro stations through bus service as well as to Arlington through bus service. So again, we're glad to have gotten that funding to support that project. Nora, next slide. I do want to just highlight our loan, multifamily loan program. We see it as a great success. We have already loaned out more than $24 million, and we've been able to bring a lot of great investment to the county through the loan program. And I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you can see, and you all are very familiar with all of the resources that are available. We've also been able to use some county fee waivers to help make it a little bit easier, as well as some of our federal programs to help support projects. But we're very proud of the fact we've been able to do 7 projects, almost 700 units in 3 years. And so we through this unmet housing needs strategic plan, we're going to try to play off of the success of this program and what our Board of Supervisors has been able to see that they can do to make a difference on affordable housing. So I'll shift over to the unmet housing needs plan and give you a little bit more information. So we're looking at it from 4 key objectives, not unusual for any of the jurisdictions here today, but we're looking at production, access, preservation, and partnerships. How can we improve the tools in these areas so we can add to the supply, preserve what we have, help out households access, and also work better together? And that includes both internally to our government structure as well as with the community. So there's a big emphasis on that in the plan. So Nora, next slide, thanks. This plan the framework for the plan is our 2019 general plan. So it's the land use framework in the general plan that was adopted by the board a couple years ago. A very simple but powerful goal in that plan is that the county wants to ensure that residents can access housing they can afford. So that's the baseline for our unmet housing needs plan. And it's set up based on that goal with some key objectives, then there's strategies that meet the objectives, and then key actions. I will show you the objectives, which are on the next slide. So we have 5 key objective areas. So establish a coordinated, collaborative, and integrated housing network. And as I said, there's an emphasis on how we do business internally in the county, how we can improve it, how we can work better together, as well as within the community itself. Part of our outreach has been to communities that don't often have a chance to voice their position. And we have a dedication through this plan to maintaining that dialogue and continuing it. As well as we had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different constituencies. So faith-based organizations, we talked to our large institutions, hospitals, our big businesses that have a lot of land, for example, to spark an interest. And we see a big task that we have is to keep the momentum going, but also to do a lot of community awareness and really have people get on board with the issue. We want to secure land resources. A big emphasis and something new for Loudoun is using public land for housing. So the plan itself has a game plan for how the board could approach that. We're excited about that. We know it's not going to solve every problem, but if we can use some public land it will really help, in the mission. Obtaining viable funding resources. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Providing incentives, establishing priorities and increasing access. So more programmatically, what are the things we can do? And then supporting both production and preservation. So those are the key objectives. What I did was kind of skip the strategies and go into key actions because I think they're more relatable, maybe. But again, I've kind of given you an idea of strategically what we're trying to do through those objectives. So in the next, so this is the toolkit that we've taken to the board. Now, what we're telling them is we want to put most of this in place over the next 5 years. Very ambitious, and we're going to at least start on it. We have presented to them short-term actions, medium-term, and long-term, and we'll be taking a specific action plan to them in the fall for both how we'll do it and how we'll pay for it. So the budget as well as the resources we need. But you can see, we have a variety of things. So the public land, part of our plan is a land inventory. We want to take it to the next step of how we go after projects and bring them in on public sites, as well as improving our ADU program. We're doing that through the zoning ordinance process. I wanted to relate this back to our 4 key areas we're focusing on. So in terms of production, preservation, we are proposing to the board that we set up a separate loan program for acquisition to both preserve below market or naturally occurring affordable housing, as well as LIHTC projects that are coming to the close of their covenants. We want to do this in kind of a quick strike loan and not as cumbersome as or as lengthy a process, I should say, as our current loan program. So we're trying to get at that a little bit differently, but set up a loan program. We're excited about it because we think it's much needed. Also, and this is a longer term idea, but working with a nonprofit to set up a community land trust. We've already had some preliminary discussions. We think it's doable. It's just going to take some time to set it up. And as I've emphasized to you all, strengthening our community partnerships in a variety of ways, both internally and externally, as well as regular reporting to the board what we're doing. So to move on to the funding plan, it's going to take a lot to implement the plan. And as I said, there'll be an annual action plan that will go to the board in the fall as they begin their budget discussions and planning for their annual budget. And so our very first action plan will go in the September-October timeframe. It will include what we expect to accomplish, as well as what our staffing needs might be for the objectives. And again, we'll be focusing on the short-term key action steps that we have in the strategic plan, depending on what the board adopts. So we still have to get board adoption on the plan. We haven't gotten there yet. We go to public hearing on Wednesday, as I said. But one thing we're doing is getting our house in order by looking at things where there is money available that we just simply need to deploy. So we do have some affordable housing proffers. That money, for example, might be used to set up our acquisition loan program. We just need the board to get it started so we can do it. We have a small trust that has been dormant for a few years. It's about $700,000. We want to access that and put it to work. The board has already made a commitment, as they were discussing their 2022 budget, that they will allocate $5 million from fund balance, so not quite as certain, but from their fund balance discussions at the end of the year. We do think this is an important step for Loudoun, and we're excited about it. We think it's a good thing that the board will do. And we're going to look at how we can access more federal funding, as well as use our federal dollars more efficiently, like through a 108 loan program or a revolving loan fund program with CDBG funds. Part of the plan discussion is doing a regular dedication of general funds. The board was not ready to get there in the 2022 budget, but they, as I said, they are committed to $5 million through fund balance discussion. And a much longer term idea, but we're starting the conversation, is establishing a community fund, or at least facilitating that so that the community has a stake in this and comes together to help fund it. So that's our funding plan. And just to wrap it up, the plan is online. And so if you want to look at the details, it's only about 50 pages. We have about 200 pages of appendices. We worked with Virginia Tech Center for Housing Research. We worked with WSP. We did a MetroQuest survey. All of that information is attached to the plan, so you can get into the details. One thing Virginia Tech did for us was look at our future jobs and what the affordability is, and that's a key area of interest of our Board of Supervisors. So we're excited to have that research. But anyway, the plan's an easy read, and the appendices are very valuable, I think, in terms of information. We expect to go to the second meeting in June to the board for adoption, June the 15th. And we will have a general discussion about their first year priorities to help us shape that first annual action plan that we'll take in the September timeframe. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions you all have. And I appreciate being able to talk to you all today. Thanks.
Great. Well, I thank NVAHA for inviting us. I think the housing directors very much look forward to this get together as well, and appreciate the work that you and NVAHA do, Michelle. So I kind of put the direction we're moving in on the cover sheet to sort of note its importance in terms of guiding all that we're doing. But I characterize it as meeting city housing affordability targets informed by our regional need, by our experience with COVID-19 and anticipated recovery. And I have had versions that say, and a renewed commitment to equity. But I think just saying that the city has truly committed itself, including through a city council resolution this year, to addressing systemic patterns of racial segregation and looking for change. So all of our housing work is being sort of looked at through this lens. Next slide, Nora. So I am not burying the lead as Sarah did. I'm starting with our budget, but just to tell you sort of what we expect to have on hand this year. Through the city budget process, we're going to start fiscal year 2022 on July 1st with about $8.2 million in dedicated revenue. And that includes our meals tax, and the city also provided some general fund dollars to make sure that the actual monies that we had anticipated to be available were not impacted by some of the loss of revenue experience related to the pandemic. We have the $1 million that was pledged in terms of our joint response for HQ2, so another $1 million. And then very fortunately, through a revenue adjustment, when the city reconciled its books, it was able to see that it had actually had about $2.7 million more revenue than it expected through this point of this year, and put another $1 million into our affordable housing development war chest. And then I describe this as plus because, of course, we have from other resources, including our developer contributions and loan repayment proceeds, about $2 million or so that we anticipate. We have some home and CDBG monies, including what for us is a larger home allocation this year. Again, part of some of those federal funds that are are working their way as part of the federal recovery resources. We have some dedicated revenues that are not needed to service our debt. And then like Loudoun, we are for the very first time going to apply for some HUD Section 108 loans. And we estimate that that will be about $5.8 million. So in addition to our 8.2, we'll have about almost $11 million. And then of course, like everyone, we're kind of looking on the horizon. We would hope to continue to have projects that would receive support from the Virginia Housing Amazon impact monies, from state and national housing trust fund resources, and our nonprofit partners have been very, very successful in getting project money there. From other federal dollars, and probably like all of you, the city is going to be getting some more what I call federal recovery resources. So we have put in a number of proposals for the American Rescue Plan and see other things where we think some of our goals could be met. So we would hope that housing would benefit from that. The Amazon Housing Equity Fund that we heard about a few months ago at NVAHA, and of course continuing to look at various social impact potential resources through the JBG Smith or other funds. So we have what feels like a sometimes limited amount, but you'll see we also have some very ambitious projects coming up. So we will be really stretching to make sure that we're able to keep our progress moving forward. That CIP fund, this reflects the city adopting a view a few years ago that housing is infrastructure. And I would say what is fortunate is that it's really funded sort of over a 10-year period. So we have on occasion been able to, kind of borrow from a future year if needed to get a particular project moving forward. Next slide, Nora. So just to fill you in, we are among the jurisdictions that formally endorsed the COG Regional Housing Initiative, including for us a recognition that Alexandria's share of that would be to add an additional 2,250 affordable and workforce units. So we're working on that, and that kind of introduced the idea of committed workforce level units to what Alexandria counts. In terms of our 2013 housing master plan, I feel very lucky to be able to say that we're on track to meet the goal of new affordability, meaning through preservation and production, by 2025. So the 2,000 units, which I think every year I tell you, we recognize that coming out of the recession, that was a modest goal. So we're glad we'll meet this. The other thing that we came up as part of our budget process was that for the first time I had a question from City Council saying, hey, when are you guys going to update your housing master plan? When are we going to do it again? Well, some of us are still recovering from the one we got approved in 2013. And of course, we did a check-in at the Housing Summit last year. But we actually think that's a very good idea. Our housing master plan's horizon is 2025. So we are planning in our fiscal year 2025 to continue to marry up our Housing for All strategy with this resolution that City Council adopted in terms of equity called All Alexandria. And I think we're going to be very laser focused on a few particular topics. We've been very lucky to not just be working through the tools and other things that the Housing Master Plan kind of set out for us to review and adopt and implement, and we've made great progress on that. But I think we're going to take this update as an opportunity to kind of freshly look at a few things where we either weren't able to get to a conclusion, or the time just wasn't maybe right for a tool, but it could be right now or in 2025. So just an update through city financial support and partnerships And this, we look at about the last 2.5 years. We had a couple of things that came in right before calendar year 2020 started. So we have over 900 new committed affordable units and a number of projects. And I have bolded a project called Landmark Tower, just to say this was the city's first foray in terms of providing a capital loan to an existing market affordable project, with the idea that we would have a right of first refusal if it were ever marketed or sold, and that we have an opportunity to, at our mutual agreement, to look at opportunities to redevelop the site. So we were very excited by that, and think we're not sure that we will have a lot of opportunities, but we think it provided a nice opportunity with willing owners. Of course, under construction, we have Wesley's Waypoint project, one of our most recent church redevelopment projects. And in the pipeline, we have 3 very significant projects. One that AHDC is doing in Arlington that will have about 500 units. We have Wesley's Parkview 2 that they will be building a second residential building on an existing affordable housing property, and then a project on Seminary Road. And this will be our first foray into home ownership in a very long period of time. And again, we think that reflects sort of our interest in equity and providing additional home ownership opportunities, which we've done on a very limited basis over the years. And these are called in the pipeline because the city's already made at least initial pre-development loans to these projects, and they sort of have a timeline and a trajectory. And then upcoming, and here more than just, of course, in my own mind, but a couple of projects that are we know we would be expecting to tackle over the next 7 or 8 years. But we have another owner in Arlington who is looking at redevelopment using one of our tools that allows you to add density for affordable housing. We have a partnership with Folger Pratt and NoVA at Landmark Mall. And some of you may know that Folger Pratt has created its own affiliated nonprofit entity, and we are hoping to do another tax credit project above the future fire station there. But we will also be getting some home ownership units and some other affordable units. We have an interest by Alfred Street Baptist Church to now move forward with properties they own on South Patrick Street. We have a block in North Potomac Yard that has been approved for up to 150 affordable units in conjunction with some kind of school facility. We're looking at other home ownership opportunities. And then probably, as many of you have in your jurisdictions, we also have a number of our existing projects will be hitting year 15 by 2030. And I say that because I think that in addition to working with the owners of those properties to make sure projects remain in the portfolio of committed affordable housing, we anticipate there might be opportunities either for repayment of some city loans, but probably for additional city reinvestment that's needed to make sure that the projects have what they need. The other thing that's very much on our mind, because condominiums here are such an important part of affordable home ownership, we were looking at an initiative, and I hope we might still be able to do this jointly with the county, Arlington County, is what type of investment might we be able to do to strengthen our aging condominium communities? And in the city especially, and I think it's true in Arlington also, some of the condominiums actually had a first life as garden apartments or other types of apartment buildings. So they have reached an age where they need some significant investment to, address deferred maintenance and make sure that residents are not, are not hit with extraordinary special fees or assessments. Next slide, Nora. The other thing, of course, as we look at the projects that we will be providing financial support to, is to look a lot at what tools do we have that are non-financial to increase our stock of housing and affordable housing. So here, the residential multifamily zone is the new zone that was created a few years ago, and it was to preserve or produce deeply affordable housing, affordable at about 40% AMI, and allow significant density to do that, and in many cases to save how much public money is needed. So we recently had a success that the one of the properties for which the tool was created actually was approved for redevelopment, and it will preserve 200 units, with the bulk of them being affordable at 40% AMI, but then the developer is going to build another 550 market rate units to provide the subsidies to maintain that those deeply affordable units. It also does have a HAP contract in place, and we have confidence that HUD will be very interested in renewing that over the long term. As I mentioned, we did a sort of check-in last January. It was among the last public meetings a few of us attended, but I think from that too, we were re-energized to look at a number of our policies. And so one of the things that occurred over the last year since then has been looking at our housing contributions policy and updating that, taking a view that moves from voluntary to mandatory, and we will be looking at seeking legislative authority for that. And I will be very interested over the next few months in talking to jurisdictions that follow the same portion of the code as Alexandria does, to see if there's some shared interest in joining us in that. We also looked at what are appropriate housing contributions when commercial space is converted to residential use, and then what happens where additional density beyond what might have been envisioned in a small area plan is requested, and then required contributions for senior continuum of care kind of housing. So we are, the policy looked at facets of those and sort of reset our expectations and requirements. We also do get units through the development process, and in most cases, we are trying to make sure that we are taking them. We think this is a very important part of our overall desire to make sure that affordable housing is geographically distributed, and in areas that are going to become highly amenitized neighborhoods of opportunity, we want to make sure that there's no part of the city that is locked out from affordable housing. I mentioned some of our zoning for housing initiatives, and like Loudoun, we recently had accessory dwelling units approved throughout the city, and we are, should say ongoing, but we are also going to give our current housing policy some time to be implemented, and we began work on inclusionary zoning last year, and we will take that up again in a few months. And then the next thing I think that marks a shift in how we've looked at things over the last several years, and kind of the importance of housing affordability that has been made even clearer to all of us through the pandemic, is the importance of prioritizing affordable housing production and preservation in our planning process, as well as what we're calling enhanced tenant protections. And so we had some of those in the South Patrick Street plan to make sure that when buildings there might redevelop, the people who would be impacted would be cared for and have a right to return. And of course, we're looking at that in Arlington. We think that's very important, and we're actually looking at proposing a bill that would say whenever a local jurisdiction is involved in some type of action, formal action to approve something in a rental property, even a renovation, a requirement for strong tenant protection should kick in. So, you know, you hear a lot about properties being repositioned, and the result is a lot of economic displacement of people who've lived there. So we're looking at some ways we can make sure that those who will be impacted have support and help, as well as a right to return. Next slide. So I think if I were to just sum up, you know, where we are, I think we're very interested in making sure that the housing needs of all Alexandrians are met, and we're aware that there are lots of parts of the city where people are really struggling. We know from the rental assistance program, both ours initially and the one now through the state, that not all of Alexandria has been similarly impacted. And we also know that there are many households that afford living in our community by sharing housing. And so we're looking to address that. I think the other thing, now that we have some federal recovery dollars coming in, we want to make sure that all Alexandrians are going to benefit from that. And so there are a series of community meetings to get people to provide input for staff and for city council in terms of what projects they think will be most impactful. And then as we started when we competed for HQ2 and had the Virginia Tech campus materialize, we want to make sure that all members of our community are benefiting from future economic development. So we have a few things we're trying to make sure that all of our housing projects respond to some of these. So among sort of our goals over the next few years, we know that there's going to be a continued need for landlord and tenant services and mediation, as well as probably some local rental assistance dollars to make sure that people have secure and stable housing and can stay in their housing. We're going to continue our support for deeper levels of affordability, including through a continuation of our own local, we're still calling it a pilot, but what has become a local rental subsidy program. We have something we called Housing Plus, and that is very much focused on how can we bring services to low income and BIPOC and new immigrant communities, and potentially through their housing. The other thing I would just call out under the umbrella of access, you know, how can we increase having committed affordable units all through the city and in neighborhoods of opportunity. We made a foray into that by proposing co-location with public schools, and we actually did not get a chance to really have that community conversation. I would say it's one of the few times where I recall a sort of visceral reaction to that. But I think that that's clearly something we're continuing to be very interested in. It may be easier to achieve in new development than when there's an existing school. And then I think we're very interested in continuing both mixed income and what I'm calling multi-ability development. I think we are seeing how important it is that we are mindful of people who need housing that allows them to remain in our community, and that covers a lot of ground, but it's something we're very, very, very interested in. And then the last thing, which, you know, I would have been surprised 5 years ago to say this, but I think there is a renewed interest in how we can create both affordable and workforce home ownership options. Very hard to do in such an expensive place, but it's something we're looking at with some of our partners and obviously at Landmark Mall. And then the other thing, which I think we've talked about from time to time, but I very much would like to make sure that we don't miss chances for regional collaboration and that we actually actively seek them out. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you for the opportunity.
So good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many friends and partners this morning. We're gonna go ahead and just jump right in. And As always, Michelle, thank you so much to NVAHA for the opportunity to do this each year. It's so always so energizing and educational to learn about what all of our partner jurisdictions are doing, and to get feedback from from so many of our trusted partners. So with that, I'll just go ahead and jump right in. Go on to the next slide if you don't mind terribly. So I'm here I'd like to report that we have really significant progress really on all fronts in Fairfax County. I'm really excited about where we are. And I'm going to go through some of the work that we're doing with respect to development, and also wearing our hat as the housing authority as well, some of the things we're doing on the federal side. So a few headlines. We've established a minimum goal of at least 5,000 net new units, affordable units by 2034. We already have an active pipeline of over 1,700 units. We've committed to no net loss relative to preserving our existing market affordable housing. We've also begun making a lot of investments in time and resources in community enhancing facilities that really bring the idea of equity investments to our work as well. So talk a little bit about that just a bit later. Jumping right in, one of our hallmarks in terms of moving forward relative to affordable housing development has been using publicly owned land. Our Board of Supervisors has become very engaged in identifying parcels of property that are owned by Fairfax County and transferring them to the FCRHA for development as affordable housing. The Housing Authority also owns a number of properties that we are actively working to redevelop. Go through some examples here. Go on to the next slide if you don't mind. First one here is North Hill. This is a 33-acre former mobile home park that is being redeveloped with 279 affordable units, 175 market rate for sale townhomes, and a 12-acre passive park. It's under construction, as you can see. Right now, we have project-based vouchers. We've put local dollars into it, as well as credits, and we anticipate that it'll be completed in the fall of next year. Next is One University. This is the redevelopment of a former public housing property that's adjacent to George Mason University. This is a first in the nation kind of development, in the sense that it is the first post-RAD conversion redevelopment that is being carried out, and it's going to replace an existing former office building and 46 townhome units with 240 affordable units, and as well as housing for George Mason University. Next is the Oakwood development that we're doing in partnership with APA. This is a former stormwater management facility that's going to be redeveloped as a much more impactful 150-unit affordable senior housing development. We're closing on the financing this summer and expect to get underway. We have a little over $5 million in local funds in this project, as well as the land. Next is the Lodge at Autumn Willow. This is in the western part of Fairfax County. Our partner is the Michaels organization. I saw Nick on the line here as well. So hi, Nick. We are very hopeful that this project will be awarded credits this year. We've got $4.5 million in this project, as well as the land. Okay. We're also investing significant amounts of local dollars, and I'm very pleased to say, thanks in part to the advocacy of many people on this in this meeting, that the Board of Supervisors added an additional half penny for each of the next 2 fiscal years for affordable housing development. So we expect all told that will net about $23 million in each of the next fiscal years for affordable housing development. And the Housing Authority, as the county's local housing finance agency, has also become increasingly active with respect to the use of its capabilities as a bond issuer to support these projects. So a few examples. First one is we on our existing Little River Glen campus, that's a senior housing campus that currently has 210 units of senior independent living and 50 beds of licensed assisted living. There is an undeveloped quadrant that we're planning on moving forward with in the very near future. This one we're planning on using the housing authorities moving to work fund flexibility to utilize some of our reserves to support that development. Go ahead. Next is Arrowbrook in the Drainsville district. This is close to Innovation Station on the Silver Line. We've got a little over $8 million or a little over $7 million in local funds, as well as project-based vouchers in this project, which is under construction and will deliver 274 units of affordable multifamily housing. We expect that'll be completed by the end of next year. Next is Wesley's Arden project in the Mount Vernon district. This is literally a block away from the Huntington Metro and is replacing an old, very rundown small apartment building with 126 units of new construction. We're really excited about this one, and it's under construction and should be completed by the middle of next year. Our most recent deal was a preservation deal with AHC, where we put $3 million in our local funds in the preservation of the landings at Fort Belvoir. It's an existing 76-unit multifamily project directly across from the entrance to Fort Belvoir. Okay. We have also been very active in terms of our community development practice, which has taken on a new relevance, a new importance with the advent of the board and the FCRHA's adoption of our One Fairfax racial and social equity policy. So we've become very involved in supporting the development of new community facilities, particularly in areas where there's been traditional underinvestment, one of which is a new domestic violence shelter, which we opened in South County about 2 years ago. We're preparing for participating in the financing of the original Mount Vernon High School, which is pictured there. It's the only remaining works progress administration structure standing in Fairfax County, and that's going to be an incredible community resource for the Richmond Highway corridor. Then finally, and we can go to the next slide, the new Lee District Community Center, which the Housing Authority purchased in the spring of last year. This is the former Mount Vernon Tennis Club. And for those of you that are familiar with the geography, it sits within walking distance of our Murray Gate property, the 700-unit Autobahn Mobile Home Park, our Autobahn former public housing property, Colchester, and Jana Lee. And this is really an investment that we have made in terms of bringing opportunity to what we hope will soon be a former island of disadvantage in Fairfax County. That's being renovated right now and will be delivered here very shortly this summer. So we're really excited about bringing that resource to the community. We've also been working on program innovation in terms of our new affordable housing goal, our preservation goals, and we also recently completed an update to our workforce dwelling unit policy, which is a proffer-driven incentive system in our comprehensive plan that serves as a complement to our affordable dwelling unit program in the zoning ordinance. The WDU program formerly had produced units ranging up to 120% of the area median income. We worked very hard over the course of about a year and a half with our industry partners to come up with an update that will provide a lot more units at lower incomes. So we're pleased about that, and that was enacted earlier this year. Okay. We have been very active in terms of using our moving to work flexibility, wearing our housing authority hat. For the first 10 years of our time as an MTW agency, we've worked to make changes to our programs to, really respond to a lot of the uncertainty that occurred through sequestration, et cetera. And now we're in a position where we're able to use that flexibility to participate in a lot more innovative ways that I'll describe here going forward. If you want to go ahead. So one way that we're exercising that flexibility is to look at our payment standards to realign them with actual market conditions. The idea is to really, as the headline here says, put the choice back in the Housing Choice Voucher Program in Fairfax County. We're also working to incentivize landlords in high opportunity areas to be much more open to the idea of renting to voucher holders. We're also working to improve our marketing and outreach to landlords about the program. And just for context, every year the FCRHA is putting about $60 million in voucher housing assistance payments into the economy to local landlords. Again, every year $60 million. That is a really impactful investment in our economy. And we feel that our customers are much better served by having more choice, by having more landlords participating in the program. Okay. The county has also this fiscal year merged the formerly independent Office to Prevent and End Homelessness into the Department of Housing and Community Development, really kind of completing the continuum of housing in the county. And we really see a lot of opportunity for synergy, particularly between our homelessness operations and our development operation. We've also been using our federal funding for sort of non-traditional purposes, such as providing services to our residents, particularly those who have challenges with hoarding, and also, as I mentioned, supporting development. We are also very hopeful that some of the additional funding that comes through, we're going to be able to use for capital acquisitions. Go ahead. So with respect to the synergy between our development work and our federal operations, we have really tried to align those operations in terms of using our moving to work authority to connect project-based subsidies with new development to help ensure that our new projects are able to serve truly a range of low income families, including those who require assistance that the vouchers provide. Our management of the voucher program has allowed us to continue serving residents throughout the pandemic while ensuring that we're not terminating anyone from the program related to the pandemic. We've also been able to maintain reserves that will allow us to increase our capital investments and, again, increase housing choice. Go ahead. So looking to the future, we're very hopeful that we're going to continue our partnership with the board as we move forward with One Fairfax to be creative about creating new capital opportunities, and again to use our equity lens as we make program, policy, and development decisions going forward. And I think that's the end of my presentation. So happy to answer any questions.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Michelle. The challenge of going last. I'll see if I can try to keep everyone awake and excited as I try to move through this information. So as Michelle said, I'm Ann Venezia. I'm the housing director for Arlington County. And to echo what the other housing directors have said earlier, I really appreciate the opportunity to come to this meeting. This is my second one. So I've been on the job for 13 months officially. And I think it's a great opportunity to share ideas and see what others are doing in the region. And so today, I'm going to spend a little time talking about our 2020 efforts, our fiscal 22 budget, and then some initiatives that we have going on right now. And again, I'll try to keep my remarks brief so we have time for questions at the end. So Michelle, you can let me know how I do. So starting with some highlights from calendar year 2020, similar to other jurisdictions, we in 2020 helped the county respond to a national pandemic. We supported continued racial equity efforts, and then of course pivoted to a new remote work situation. And so lots of stuff going on, and that was all in addition to continuing our usual projects and programs that people rely on us for. So to echo something I think, Michelle, you said earlier, there was a lot of work that happened last year that went beyond even just COVID response. So, but to talk about COVID response first, and thanks Nora for going to that slide, as part of our COVID relief efforts, we did several things. So first, we launched 2 borrower relief programs that supported an estimated 100 homeowners and 19 multifamily borrowers. And with the multifamily borrowers, that in turn supported what we estimate to be about 1,600 residents at our committed affordable properties. And so we also identified $900,000 in just our regular CDBG entitlement funds to support a supplemental COVID-19 NOVA process. And that resulted in grants to 7 organizations to support COVID response. And then we also dispersed approximately $2.4 million in CSBG and CDBG CARES funds to support emergency rental assistance. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. And then lastly, we also supported the county's eviction prevention efforts that included tenant information, landlord outreach, and other things that, again, I'll address as part of our ongoing initiatives. Next slide. So also in calendar year 2020, we made some strides to bolster our rental and homeownership program. So again, as the other jurisdictions said, the work must go on even during COVID. And so last year, the county board approved projects with 246 net new committed affordable units, or CAFs, and then also $12 million in future developer contributions. And those developer contributions go directly to our Affordable Housing Investment Fund. We also, 257 previously approved units began construction, and 627 units completed new construction or rehab. And those units included HC's Apex project, the Carlin, and also Culpeper Gardens. So again, there were 3 big projects that completed rehab or construction last year. Staff also worked on the homeownership side. And so we worked with 7 potential home buyers that were interested in the county's moderate income purchase assistance program. And we helped close on 2 MyPAP loans. And then using funding from our community development block grant program, we had 97 people complete first-time homebuyer education classes through the Latino Economic Development Corporation. And next slide. And then we also focused on other housing planning and tenant support efforts. And so, for example, for Housing Arlington, our Missing Middle Housing Study team published a 5-part research compendium in summer 2020. And I think several of you have had an opportunity to look at that. And we also supported a public kickoff event virtual in October. We also issued a call for ideas that resulted in approximately 20 responses on policy issues ranging from condo supports to innovative financing. And we received many entries from folks who are on this call today. So it was really great just to see that wide generation of ideas. And then we also launched the Affordable Housing Master Plan Review, which includes an updated needs analysis and a 5-year review of the Affordable Housing Master Plan, which was adopted in 2015 for Arlington. And so this work is including progress to date on the county's implementation strategy as well. So other housing planning efforts, oops, sorry, Nora, can you go back very quickly? So other housing planning efforts included the analysis of impediments to fair housing, consolidated plan, and digital equity action plan, which are all scheduled to be completed this year. In fact, we submitted our updated consolidated plan in February. And then lastly, staff also had a successful pivot to virtual outreach and education. And that included a virtual Live in Arlington information fair. We had 2 neighborhood cleanups. And we also organized or supported more than a dozen virtual education workshops for residents, and provided information to renters, landlords, and community members on a variety of topics, all while trying to stay safe, COVID safe during those efforts. Okay, next slide. So now I'm going to shift gears to our fiscal year 22 budget. So, the next slide. And so last month, so April, the county board passed its fiscal year 22 budget, which reinforced Arlington's commitment both to equity and also to affordable housing. And so specifically, the board approved $16.9 million for our Affordable Housing Investment Fund, or AHIF, which is an increase over fiscal year 21 funds and will support additional affordable housing supply in Arlington. And similar to Alexandria, I think Helen mentioned this, these funds will supplement the loan repayments, developer contributions, and federal funds that we also receive to support housing development efforts in Arlington. So we're really excited to receive that additional money. And the board also provided $14.2 million for housing grants. And housing grants is the county's local rental subsidy program. So it helps to supplement the housing choice voucher funds that we receive. And the $14.2 million is $1.5 million over the manager's proposed budget. And it will allow clients to provide 30% of their income towards rent. So again, more consistent with housing choice voucher program, rather than the historic threshold contribution of 40%. So this was a really significant change for us. Again, trying to provide even greater relief to the households that participated in that program. And in addition, the county board approved $3 million for the county's permanent supportive housing program. And that program is a local and state funded rental assistance program aimed to house and support low-income adults with disabilities in permanent affordable apartments. And we also extended our multifamily loan payment waiver program. And that was the program that I mentioned a few minutes ago, through December 31st, 2021. And this program allows participating multifamily owners to retain payments that they would otherwise send to the county in repayment of their county loan. And that helps to offset COVID-related expenses at those properties. And in exchange, these owners have extended eviction protections for their residents through the end of the calendar year. And lastly, the county board is also providing additional assistance for eviction prevention and emergency rental assistance. So specifically, they've allocated $934,000 for additional emergency rental assistance for fiscal year 22, and we'll continue to reanalyze that amount as funds are drawn down. Next slide. So I wanted to wrap up today by talking through several initiatives that are either ongoing from 2020 or starting new in 2021. And so here are some highlights from that. So I've mentioned eviction prevention a couple of times already. And so with COVID-19, eviction prevention has become a really significant effort for Arlington, as it has with other jurisdictions who spoke today. So given continuing housing instability for many Arlington households, these efforts are continuing into 2021. So I wanted to talk through some of what we're doing there. So the county has 4 main areas in which we're focusing our eviction prevention efforts. The first is financial assistance, and this is the rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. So those emergency rental assistance payments I mentioned. And this is needed by many residents who've been economically impacted by COVID. And so between March 2020 and February 2021, the county has allocated $8 million in local, state, and federal funds for emergency rental assistance in the county. We're also really focused on service coordination. And so specifically, the county is coordinating services between clients, nonprofit housing and service providers, legal service providers, the courts, and the sheriff to ensure that tenants are able to access eviction prevention resources, sometimes as late as on the courthouse steps. So we really want to make sure that everyone has access to those resources. For policy and advocacy, we're working with many of you. So we're participating on a regional eviction prevention task force to share information and develop solutions. And again, other partners who are on the call today, Alexandria, Fairfax, Loudoun, and also Falls Church are participating in that task force. And then lastly, for our outreach and education, we developed a comprehensive outreach strategy so that everyone who is eligible for services and resources know about them. And so to do that, we distributed flyers to all multifamily buildings in the county. We also created public service announcements in 7 different languages. And we held workshops in partnership with many of the more than 20 social safety net providers in the county. And we also provided updated online resources. And so we have a new eviction prevention data tracker that shows funds spent, demographic and geographic information about the beneficiaries of these efforts, and also an eviction court tracker. And through these collective efforts, the county so far has supported 3,743 unduplicated households since the onset of the pandemic. Next slide. And meanwhile, as many of you know, the county board initiated Housing Arlington in 2019 as a way to bring together many of the county's existing efforts and to determine new strategies for ensuring that the housing supply goal of the county's affordable housing master plan is met. And so there are 6 initiatives under the Housing Arlington umbrella. There's land use tools, there's financial tools, there's institutional partnerships, there's county employee housing, there's the condo initiative, which includes some of the efforts that Helen referenced earlier that we're doing with Alexandria. And then there's the Affordable Housing Master Plan review. And in terms of key efforts we anticipate for 2021, the Missing Middle Housing Study and the Affordable Housing Master Plan review are both really significant efforts that I mentioned earlier, and also we'll discuss further under our equity initiatives in a few minutes. We also have a few zoning studies that I just wanted to mention. So one is the zoning ordinance amendment for height. And in April, the board approved this amendment, which allows increased building heights of up to 60 additional feet beyond the maximum height permitted in 3 of our multifamily residential districts. And the projects that are eligible for this additional height, they either need to be 100% affordable or otherwise demonstrate that they advance the policies of the Affordable Housing Master Plan. So again, that was just adopted in April. Additionally, for elder care affordability, we're examining ways to bring affordability into assisted living and similar settings for our senior adults. And so next steps include economic analysis, consulting work, and doing some interviews with practitioners. And I think also, given the earlier conversation, I'll need to reach out to Helen and Jim to learn more about what's going on in Alexandria as well. Next slide. So on the housing supply front, we have 2 significant efforts in 2021. First, we issued our fiscal year 22 Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, on May 5th. So we anticipate having approximately $18 to $21 million in county loan funds available through this NOFA. And these county loan funds are for either the development and or the preservation of affordable rental housing. We weren't able to issue a NOFA last year due to budget and some other constraints. And so we're really excited that we're able to release this for fiscal year 22. And I also wanted to highlight the capital needs assessment we're conducting of the county's multifamily loan portfolio. And so staff monitors the health of the county's CAF properties through on-site physical inspections, financial monitoring, and most recently, off-site virtual inspections due to COVID. And unlike some of our partner jurisdictions, we don't operate as a housing authority. We're a lender in really all of these situations. And so our oversight ability is a little bit different. Yet we still recognize there really is an important role for the county to take in these situations. And so specifically, some of our older properties that were acquired with little or no rehab at the time of acquisition, those provide a really important preservation opportunity. Yet these same properties may face aging buildings and systems which impact ongoing maintenance and operating budgets. And so while most properties use replacement reserves or other property accounts to complete larger or more costly repairs, some repairs or equipment replacement costs are cost prohibitive, and therefore do really necessitate outside resources to avoid a more piecemeal approach. And so again, to make it more impactful. And so with all this in mind, staff is developing a plan to identify property needs across the county's portfolio and to research funding options that would allow for a more comprehensive capital needs strategy. And so this is a focus for us in fiscal year 22, and we do hope to have something that we can share in this effort in the next 12 to 18 months. So next slide, okay. And so I just wanted to wrap up today with a focus on some of our housing equity efforts. So both as part of our efforts to realize Arlington's commitment to equity and to be in compliance with the federal law that the county worked to affirmatively further fair housing, we are in the process of drafting a fair housing plan that reflects recommendations around these efforts. And this is part of the larger regional effort. Arlington is participating in that. Again, I know many of you are familiar. And so strategies range from land use policies to housing testing to educational efforts. And we're aiming to submit our revised plan in 2022. And then also as part of Housing Arlington, we've launched a missing middle housing study that will examine land use and zoning policies that may help alleviate some of the historic patterns of inequitable neighborhood development and homeownership. So this is a real focus for us again in the upcoming year. And then also as part of Housing Arlington, the Affordable Housing Master Plan review, which I've mentioned now a couple of times, we're using a revised needs analysis and also metrics on progress made since the plan was adopted in 2015 to reflect on equity outcomes specifically and really inform how our housing policy can better support racial equity in practice. And then additionally, as part of an interdepartmental effort to eliminate the digital divide, we're looking at ways to encourage low or no cost internet access in affordable housing complexes in Arlington. And lastly, we're taking a closer look at our homeownership programs to identify new opportunities, not only to increase affordable homeownership, but also to provide for wealth building strategies for some of our underserved populations in Arlington. And I'll also mention the county is developing an equity dashboard that we're hoping to release soon too. So that would be available on our website. And so I'll take a deep breath. I think I got through all of that as quickly as I could. And so Michelle, hopefully I did okay on time there.
You did a great job, Anne. Thank you so much.